Hi, this is Tim. Yesterday I bottled up a number of bottles of a chocolate porter that I made for the holidays. Be drinking that in 2 or 3 weeks, and then the rest of it I'm going to let age and drink it next year and see how it tastes. Well, after I was done, I saved my fermentation bucket of the settled trub and yeast on the bottom, and now I'm going to wash the yeast out of it. Now, I started this video a little while ago and something happened to my camera, so I'm doing it a little bit disjointed this time because I'm already part of the way into it. But let me explain what I did. I had this bottle here, which now has sanitizer in it, filled with boiling water, or water that had been boiled, cooled boiling water. And I poured it into the trub and mixed it around really good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour it back into the bottle, and we're going to let this separate, and we're going to do what we can to wash the yeast. So here's everything over here. I'll give you a look inside the bucket and see what's in there. Okay. Right now I just got liquid. It's really chocolatey. Again, it was a chocolate porter. And I'm going to take this sanitizer and pour it back into my sanitizer bucket. And then I will go about. I've already dipped this funnel in sanitizer, so we're good to go there. And I know the foam doesn't hurt anything, but I'll get as much of it out as I can. Okay. Swap the funnel over. Get rid of this. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on that. And watch it as I... Now the trub's all mixed around with the boiling water. Now what'll happen is after about 15-20 minutes, maybe a little more, I know, I'll keep an eye on it, this liquid is going to stratify. All the heavy particles, trub, hops, stuff from spices or whatever, chocolate, is going to go to the bottom. Now you can't really see it, but there's still a bunch of crap in the bottom of this bucket here. Anyway, so put the lid back on here and wait. We'll let that sit for about, again, 15 to 30 minutes, and then we'll come back and take a look at it and see what happens. It's been about 15 minutes now, and there is a little bit of stratification starting. If you look in the top there, we got a little bit of a line there, but what we're really interested in is down here toward the bottom, and I think we still got a ways to go. I don't really see a definitive line yet, so we'll let that sit and we'll come back and check it in a little while. There's no huge rush in this. The yeast that remains in the top layer up here is going to stay there for quite a while, so we can, if we have to, wait 45 minutes, even an hour, to let the heavy stuff settle to the bottom. Then we'll pour the top off. Then what we'll do is, and another bottle over here that we're going to pour everything into. It's got sanitizer in it right now, and let's again pour that out and use it. Now one thing, A little bit different thing that I do, and I'm not sure how other people feel about this, but I like to use plastic bottles. A lot of people use the glass bottles. If I had some glass bottles, I'd probably use them. I don't. A lot of people like to use ball jars, pint jars for their yeast washing. That's great. I've done that. But I also use plastic jars. One thing that I found that's really handy and very easily available, as well as really super cheap, is little small pop bottles. Again, food safe, nothing wrong with them. Never had anything other than liquid in them, so they should be good. Wash them up, sanitize them, sanitize the lids. I usually break the little ring off of them. I don't have something to break the ring in, so you can get a nice tight seal. But these things work really good, and they're free if you drink pop. So anyway, I'm going to wash a bunch of those up, and eventually everything will end up in those. In fact, let me show you what I've done in the past. Take a little walk here. My keys are over to my fridge over here, and open it up. And you look in my door, and I've got all kinds of washed yeast that I've done previously. Using Irish ale. Now make sure you label them with the date you washed it. In this case, this is a 3rd generation, so I put an R3 for 3rd generation. There's a nice little yeast cake down at the bottom. The top is what everything is settled out of. When I need to use this yeast, I'll make a starter, pour off most of this liquid, and leave just enough that I can shake this bottle up and shake that yeast into suspension again. But you can see I've got all kinds of bottles of different flavors of yeast here that I can use for all kinds of different kinds of beer. And as I said, I've used liquid yeast, dry yeast. In fact, I got some dry yeast up there ready to use. So I don't necessarily, if I need any SO5, I'm pretty good for that. Anyway, that's what we got. So, wait a little bit more for the trub and everything to settle down to the bottom, and we'll check back on it in another 15 to 20 minutes. It has been about an hour, and if we look, we can see some definite layers developing. Look right here, there's a line going across there. Then it gets all milky, and then up in the top we got a little more separation up there. What we're going to do is we're going to try to pour off everything from here up. This stuff is stuff we don't want on the bottom. Now this gets a little tricky because it's almost impossible to not get something that you don't want. But we'll give it a try and see what happens. Keeping an eye on the separation. And just about there. And I think that's as far as I dare go. Go ahead and leave that, just look at it. Right over. And I'm going to repeat the process. We'll let this clarify a little bit. And come back to it in about an hour. It's been about 5.5 hours since I poured into my second bottle. I want to pour it into one more bottle, and then what I'll do is I will let it sit overnight, and then I'm going to pour it into individual containers. So here's what we got right now. Now if you look, there's some definite thinness up here. Then it gets milky, and it's kind of hard to see, but there's a line right across the bottom, right there. I have the trub and crap on the bottom. So what I'm going for is all this stuff in the middle. So, there you go. Now, as I did with the other one, this bottle has been washed out and sanitized with Star San. You can kind of see at the bottom of this, there's still a bunch of crap there. So that's where it's got to be really careful and only pour out what I want. When I get close to starting to suck in all that crap, I'm going to stop. Getting close, and I think we're good enough. Alright, they're good enough. There's still a bunch of, if you look in here, you can see the stuff on the bottom there, pretty obvious. And a bunch of stuff there. So, as I said, I'll take this, seal it back up, and we'll let this go one more time. And tomorrow, I'll pour that into individual bottles. Been a little over 12 hours. The yeast slurry has been cold crashing in my fridge for that time, and more stuff has dropped out. So now it's time that I'm going to put it into some containers that I'll store it in. Now if you look, I have a number of pop bottles. I've got 5 little 12-ounce bottles and 3 16 or 20-ounce bottles. I prefer putting it in the small 12-ounce bottles just because it takes up a whole lot less space. Since I make starters, it does build up once I make a starter, so I don't need a whole lot of yeast, just a good amount to get a good starter going. So, here we go. I've noticed that there's some stuff on the top of it, so I'm going to see if I can pour a little bit of that off in my sink. And what happens is it goes to the back, but okay, real slow here. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to fill this last one all the way. Oh yeah. Great. Now what's left in here, turn it sideways to see, there's the stuff that settled overnight. All kinds of crud. Anyway. That's the way that I wash yeast. Just like what other people do, using ball jars, and mason jar lids. I just use sanitized containers made out of PVC. Stick this in the fridge, let them crash, and I'll come back and take another look at them here in a little while, a couple days, and we'll show you the difference. They're already labeled. I took off the little plastic collars that goes underneath this thing. Now when you label them, you label what the yeast is, in this case Safe Ale US 33, put today's date on it, and R1 signifying this is the first iteration of yeast washing that I did, revision 1. These things should be good for, I don't know, 3 to 6 months at least. They're going to be in the fridge, so it's hard to say. Since I've got the smaller containers, if I've got a larger batch, I can use 2 in my starter. One vial or one container here is probably good for a 5-gallon batch with the starter. So put them in the fridge, and as I said, we'll check back in a couple days. Okay, I'm back, and I'm a little earlier. As I was moving the vials over to my fridge, I noticed that on the bottom of them, let's see if I can get a better view here, there is a significant amount of trub that's already settled. I don't know if you can see that. This is the third one I've looked at, and this one doesn't have nearly as much as the others. But if you look at the little thing sticking out right here, there's a whole lot of stuff that settled in about 5 minutes. So I don't really like that. Probably doesn't matter. But what I'm doing is I'm pouring off the good stuff off of that trub that's settled, and I'm just transferring it from bottle to bottle to bottle, washing and sanitizing the bottles as I go. Pouring off all but the very bottom 1/8 of an inch. Kind of amazed me that that settled like that. You can kind of see, looking at that, that there's stuff that it didn't take long, but some stuff settled on there. Anyway, back to the fridge. It's been about 10 hours now since I separated the yeast into little 12-ounce bottles. Had this cold crashing in my fridge. If you look real closely, you can see the top there above the tape is pretty clear. Well, not pretty clear, but it's beginning to get clear. Work your way down to the bottom. The bottom's a little more milky. And if you look all the way at the bottom, you can see yeast is starting to settle on the bottom of the bottle. So it will take a while, but this will separate out and we'll get some pretty clean liquid pretty soon. Again, yeast type, date washed, iteration. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this. There are a lot of ways to wash yeast. The key thing when you're doing it is to keep your sanitation practices up there. I used a lot of Star San, washed the bottles quite a bit, boiled the water that I used to wash the yeast out of the wort, let all the trub and crap settle to the bottom a couple times. Could even do it another time here. There's still plenty of yeast in suspension, but this will be just fine. Hopefully next time I need to use some Safe Ale US 33 yeast, this will still be good. It should last at least 3 months. It probably will be good 6 or 7 months. Could be even longer that I'll be able to use it. The key is to make a good starter, let the starter go to pan out and to fruition, and it'll work just great. Here's some yeast that I harvested, looks like about a month or so ago. Some White Labs W01, California Ale yeast, WPL001. If you look at this now, it's starting to get condensed. The wort on the top, or the liquid on the top, is really clear. Plenty of yeast on the bottom. Over here I got some Nottingham that I washed about 6 months ago, and you'll notice that it is really clear on top. Pour off all that liquid when I need to use it, and there's a yeast cake on the bottom there. One thing you need to do anytime that you use washed yeast is to make darn sure when you're using it, oh, and here's some wheat yeast, real clear liquid there. Again, yeast cake on the bottom. Decant the top of the liquid, pour off as much as you can, shake up what's left, use that. Now before you use it, smell it. If it smells like rotten eggs, don't use it. It's crap. If it smells good, use it. It'll smell like yeast. It'll smell like bread yeast. It'll smell like beer yeast, stuff you're used to out of the bottle or out of the pack. If it smells bad, it probably is bad. I wouldn't use it. Alright, it's been about 3 days since I did the initial yeast washing. I put it in small bottles on Monday. Today is Wednesday, and it's been in the refrigerator crashing since then. Let's take a look at the bottles. There's my little yeast 6-pack with 5 yeasts in it. And if you look, there's a good sized yeast cake on the bottom, and the top has gotten a lot clearer. Another one, same story. Good sized yeast cake in the bottom, top a lot clearer. Well, that's yeast washing in a nutshell. I hope this is informative. It's easy process, just takes a little bit of time and patience. Save a little bit of money, and you can use your yeast over and over and over. Typically you wouldn't want to use it more than 4 or 5 times. That's what people recommend. I've never gone more than 4. But you can stretch your yeast dollars out. So in the end, all you really have to buy is the grain and any hops that you need to add. So, cheers. Well, you know, one part nobody ever shows in any of these videos about yeast washing or brewing or anything having to do with it is the mess that you make and what it takes to clean it up. Well, I'm going to do that. Here's the inside of my bucket, filled with a little bit of water I've added, all the crap and trub I'm not going to use. It takes a lot of effort to brew. Get a great result, but I'll tell you, it takes effort to get this done. First thing I'm going to do is some hot water. Spray all the crud down. Just get it out of there. Now add a little bit of soap. And plug up my sink. After I let everything drain, I got a bunch of other stuff I need to wash up. Plug in. Never thought you'd see a video about washing dishes, did you? Well, it's necessary. Good idea to clean your stuff up as soon as you can. It's a whole lot harder when it's all dried and sticky. Now, one thing I want to say is I use these 5-gallon buckets that I buy from Lowe's for my fermenters. I've got some 6.5-gallon fermentation buckets, but I happen to like these for a number of reasons. First of all, they are food safe. It says right there. Second of all, they got great markings on the side, and that really helps a lot. It goes up to 3.5 right there, but I found that if you measure up another 1.5 inches or 1 3/4, there's 4, and 4.5 and 5 is right up in the top of the bucket. So these are really handy. So I got some cut on the bottom that needs to come off. Another thing I found after doing this for a while is the best lids are these orange Home Depot lids. Now you can see I've drilled it and put a grommet in there for my airlock. The thing that's nice about these lids is they're really flexible, and that lets you get a decent seal. Or lets you get them on and off decent. But not only that, they've got a good gasket on them, and it seals your fermenter, so you actually get some bubbling out of your airlocks. I've had a lot of lids that aren't very good, and if they don't have a good seal, you'll never see bubbling on your airlocks. Now that's not a huge deal because you're still going to get a blanket of CO2 over your wort while it's fermenting. Anyway, these I got at Home Depot. They're like $1.86. Drill a hole, put a grommet in there for your airlock. Anyway, that's what I find.